everyone. Thanks for joining Cindy and I. It's Wednesday night again, so we're doing how to zero waste travel tips.
Yeah. So, and we already do this, right? I mean, this is something that if you're trying to pack light or save money, you're already doing a lot of these things. But they really do help the environment. And if you're thinking about that a little bit about how can I reduce my impact when I'm traveling, we have some tips, a handful of things that do all those things, right?
Right, exactly. And I think that, like Cindy mentioned, there are multiple reasons why you might want to think about this.
Right.
Our environment is getting stretched and thinned, and you read all these horrible stories about all the clothing waste in America. So there's many ways that you can try to pack less, not be so wasteful. So you're doing multiple things. You're helping the environment, you're helping yourself. Who wants to
Yes.
keep dragging all that stuff around and filling
Yeah.
up the trash cans in poor Venice? I hate to see that when I go to cities and their trash cans
Yeah,
are
or
just,
there's just litter. I mean, honestly, some of
yeah.
these touristy locations are heavily, they're heavily trafficked. And if you've got a lot of trash, I mean, somebody has to pick it up. And if it doesn't get picked up, it gets kind of spread around. So the better we can do there. And also, like, it's light packing, right? If you don't have a
Yeah.
lot of packaging and a lot of reusable items, then there's less stuff in your bag. So there are just things you can do, and definitely saving money because you're not buying all that individual stuff. You buy things more in bulk and reuse the things over and over. So you obviously gain that savings by doing that as well. So let's kind of walk through some of our tips. I mean, I think one of the things that we often think about is like the individual wrapped, right? I don't know how many
Right.
times you're like, oh, I'll take that when I travel, but you have individually wrapped candies, snacks, handy wipes, whatever those things are, right? Like, you
Right.
don't need those. Those are so wasteful.
Yeah, they really are. I mean, if you can really limit any of that disposable type stuff. I know we talked
Yes.
about like just like the facial wipes. I mean, you end up with a little, by the time you count out what you might need for, if you're going for a long time, like say a month, those 30 packs are pretty thick.
Right.
Why not just bring a really good washcloth or dark colored cloth and some good soap or something cleaning,
Right.
to clean your skin, and keep rinsing out the colored washcloth and reuse it.
And it can be used over and over, and you're not filling up the landfill, you're saving money. There's
Yeah.
so many things to do it. So when you start looking at that, start thinking about like, is this really convenient? There are things that are convenient, and it is better to take in, whatever that is, but not always. And you want to, be considerate and concerned about that as you do that. I think our biggest thing that we've talked about before is the food factor, right? Like how
Right.
you can have reusables. And we do this mostly, I think April and I both do it for economical reasons. It's like just purely cheaper to have your own cutlery and eat, picnicking and
Yeah,
doing that kind of stuff,
picnicking
right?
or yeah, but also kind of then keep it in mind if you do go to a restaurant, maybe you can take your own container. I know Cindy's got a great little stackable
Yes.
container, because if you eat in the restaurant, they do most of the time serve you on dishes that they're going to wash. Although I know some restaurants with, from time to time that are more convenient. They think it's
Yeah.
convenient. I don't know why. They're just giving you paper plates and stuff. Try to avoid that and maybe take something that you can take in your own. They have the reusable Ziploc bags, which I think Cindy's going to show us.
Yeah, I have a couple. So I do bring these. These are reusable. They're more durable than your disposable Ziploc, although I do bring some of those sometimes too because they're lighter and they pack
Yeah.
smaller, and I use those. But these I can wash out and reuse. They're heavy. I have one that's a little smaller than this that I often bring. And that's what I was just telling April. It's like if you're at the restaurant and you're done and
Yeah.
there's bread on the table, I'm just like sticking it in my bag and sticking it back in my bag because that's a snack tomorrow with like some cheese or a piece of fruit. And I've got fresh something that I can keep here. And then it's flat, right? It's easy to pack
Yeah.
this.
Right.
And being able to do that, or you go to the grocery store and you're in your room for a couple of days and you make up a couple of things to eat, whether it's just a sandwich or something, and you now are moving to the next place. Then I
Yeah.
get my bags out again and I fill it up with stuff and I carry that stuff on to the next place so that I can actually reuse both the food and my things instead of throwing it away or having to have
Right. And
disposable stuff.
yeah, and in the long run, those bags that you just showed us, you make that initial purchase, but over, you keep
Right.
using it and using it over a year's worth, a couple years worth of travel. If you take care of it, you've just
Yeah.
saved yourself, who knows, a good 2 to 3 boxes maybe of those inexpensive Ziploc bags, or you've
Right.
saved the restaurant having to give you all
Yes.
those styrofoam containers that are really, really bad for the
Yeah.
environment and just so
Yeah.
wasteful.
And sometimes they give you such a big box. Like I'm just like,
Yeah,
I have this, I just want to take
I
this
know.
little sandwich and they give me this huge box. And so I have that. And then the other one I have is my little tin
Yeah.
that I use, which I love. And I've had this for, I don't know, now almost probably 10 years. This is not waterproof. That's the other reason I have these, because these are when they're zipped up, but I can pack lunch for me and my mom. We've done it for 2 people. There's enough room in the bottom. Then there's another top to it, which has another little container. And sometimes I take this little container out and have it separate. And then I'm able to stack it. But I mean, I can put quite a bit of food in here, anything from vegetables to fruits to cheeses to meats. I mean, sometimes I just put a salad in the bottom and a
Oh,
couple of other
wow.
things, right? So it really helps to have that. And then again, the same thing if I've had food at a restaurant and if I have this in my bag, I'll just grab that and take the stuff right off the plate. I don't need to ask for a to-go container. I can put it in here and then put it in my shopping bag. And
Right.
I often bring that when I know I'm going out. Sometimes you're going to a nice restaurant and you're like, I'm going to order a big meal and it's going to be more than I can eat. It'll be nice to have it later for tomorrow. So
Yeah, of course. I
that's
never want to
cost
leave
savings.
good food, like sometimes like
um,
the dessert, especially you just wanted a taste, so you always end up having some dessert or something left over, and so
right.
much nicer to be able to put it in something that's easy to take instead. They give you those big
Mhm.
boxes and things, and yeah, just
And the selling point for me for this is that it is durable. So I can literally sit on it. It's metal. It's very sturdy. So I can shove it in my bag. Other things can sit on it. It's not going to crack open or break or anything. Like I said, I've had it for a really long time. So it's definitely something that it's one of my favorite things when I'm going on a trip is I get it out and I pack my snack for the way, whether it's going to be a
right.
train or a plane. Like I put my little train snack in there, right? That's or my little plane snack in there. And then when I get there, I can clean it out. I wash it a little bit and use it for something else or stuff other stuff in it.
Yeah, that's great.
But and you also like me, we always bring plastic
Yes,
cutlery.
right. And I
Um, for those reasons, right? So you can eat the leftovers, so you can go to the grocery store, so
Or even
you
if I
don't,
pick up something, like you stop somewhere, I always, tell them, hey, I don't need the extra. A lot of times they ask or they have it off to the side. So
yeah,
then you don't even need to stop and get any of that. You've already got,
right,
something to eat it with and just wash it off and keep
right,
using it.
right. And then I travel with several bandanas. I usually bring 2 or 3, and I color code them which ones I'm using to wipe my face off, which I do like when you're hot and sweaty and you use that. And then the other one is for my food. And then I may use a different one for like a placemat or like a
Oh,
tablecloth
yeah,
or whatever.
right.
So I travel with these. And then because they're so thin, they, they dry fast, right?
Right,
I wash them out if
exactly.
they get dirty after a few days. So super easy stuff to do. And then I don't need napkins either.
I know. Yeah, exactly. Which a lot
So
of times, on a windy day, you're stopping at the park, they get away from you and this and
yeah,
that. Like the bandana, you can easily, it's big enough, you can kind of tuck it in under your leg while you're sitting and have your
right,
food on top. I mean,
right.
super easy to use.
And they're great to have in the bag because like you said, you can use it to wipe things up and then I can rinse it out and then they dry really fast. So it's not something that I have to worry too much about what it is. And they come in all kinds of colors. You can buy a package of them, like 12 or so for nothing on Amazon. And then you can just keep reusing them over and over. Um, for all kinds of things.
I know. Yeah, I was just thinking, like, yeah, you could have one for to tie your
Yeah,
hair
sometimes I put
back.
it in my head.
You
Sometimes
could,
I sit on it. Like,
right.
it just depends on what I need. And if I have, they're always one tucked in my bag or tied to my bag somewhere.
Yeah, I was
And
just gonna say, even tying it to your bag. Again, another reason to tie one to your suitcase so you can identify your bag. Or there's
right.
multiple uses here. That's the whole key, is thinking of things that it's not convenient. You're not losing convenience. You're just trading what kind of materials it is into
Mhm.
something that's continually reusable.
Yeah. And I mean, my mom always says she hates paper napkins. She doesn't like how they feel. She'd rather use a cloth napkin. And you feel fancy. And I'll tell you, when I have these two of these, and I'll place one on my tray at the,
Oh
either in the
yeah.
train or the plane. And then I have the other one as my napkin. And then I take my little tin out, and I said, people think I'm like, oh, luxurious
Yeah,
stuff. And it's like, yeah, because I
exactly.
have a little tablecloth and I look all
Right.
special. And it absolutely makes you feel like you're doing something more than, eating
Yeah.
off a paper plate and plastic
Right.
fork. And yeah, it really ups the game a little.
Yeah, it really does. It does.
So, and then of course, like things like easy things like water bottle and coffee mug. So if you don't, we should use a reusable water bottle. And then sometimes you get a lighter one. I know mine's an aluminum one, which I really like because it's pretty light when it's empty, and it
Yeah.
has a clip so I can clip it to the outside of my bag so it doesn't take up extra space.
Right. And I have seen that too. Like if you're traveling through the airport, I know both Cindy and I like to use a backpack. A lot of times, make sure you pick a backpack that has a side pocket, then you can slip that in
Yes.
the side pocket, and they don't, it's still going to slide under the seat. You don't get in trouble as such for
Right.
having something stuck in there. And then you're not having to spend like I mean, water bottles now at the airport are super expensive.
Yeah, they are. And, they now have the water fountains have the
Yes.
space for it. And so that's the tip. I was always bring your empty bottle, right? So you can do that. I may have to rescue a cat. So I'll let
Oh
you keep talking because I think they're having a
no.
fight. I'll
Sure.
be right back.
Uh-oh. Yeah. So we were just talking some more about some of the other things. Think about your toiletries bag. Think about, again, if you can use things that are reusable, you can get, depending on what kind of hair you use and hair products, there are some shampoo bars. There's using, bringing your own little thing of soap and putting that into a container. I know Cindy has a great one that she uses. But again, instead of bringing big old containers, buy some of those reusable containers, or reuse. If you did buy something at the drugstore that's travel size, keep reusing it. I'm always reusing that little shampoo container and refilling it from my big
Correct.
older, bottle at home. And
Yeah.
just, so anything you can do to reduce, because all those extra containers, they got to end up somewhere. And
Yeah. And reuse them. I mean, I don't necessarily buy, like the reusable shampoo container. I do what you do. Sometimes I'll
right.
go and I'm like, okay, this one that has shampoo in it, it's small, it works for me. I use that shampoo and then I refill it with my own.
Right,
Because I
exactly.
like the container, or sometimes it's something that had something else completely in it and I use it for shampoo or facial wash or lotion or whatever. Just keep reusing it until it literally falls apart. That usually makes me feel better.
Yeah, it really does. You do feel like it makes you feel better. And even, I know we've talked about clothes sometimes too. It's like it makes me feel better if I can, if you find a brand you like, oftentimes you go on eBay, go to a thrift store, you can find that same item instead of, we all like to treat ourselves with maybe something new when we travel, but why not just that new thing is something that's at a thrift shop, something that's off of
New for
eBay.
you,
Yeah,
right?
it's new for you. And just again, making use of the items that are already out there. You'd be surprised what you can find if you just
Right.
go take the time and look.
Right. And reusing, we were talking about that too earlier, of when they hand you napkins or you get the disposable cutlery that you didn't
Yeah.
want, or you get an extra cup that you didn't need. I mean, I hang on to that stuff and reuse it for as many times as I can, right? If you get the paper cup at the coffee shop, and I forgot my other cup, which I carry, I have a little cup that I do carry, coffee one. But if I didn't have it with me and I got a paper one, I'll take it back and rinse it out, and I'll probably use it for something else for a while until it gets pretty awful. And
Yep. That's me. I feel so thrifty, but it's kind of that combination of saving money and also
Mhm.
being conscious and responsible that we don't need to like always have a brand new one. Just keep reusing it. It'll
Right.
keep being reusable at least 2 or 3 times, sometimes more, before you have to get a new one or pull out the one that hopefully you brought with you.
Right. Yeah. And we were
Ask at
talking
the
about not leaving it on the table, because if they
Yeah,
gave you cutlery or they gave you a napkin, if it was on your tray or on your table, they're going to toss it.
I know.
So just stick it in your bag, and you likely can use it later and then toss it after you've used it a couple of times. It might come in handy for something else. You'd be surprised with those kinds of things. Like a plastic spoon is helpful for something that you didn't
Oh
know you
yeah.
needed
Right. Yeah,
a
exactly.
plastic spoon for. Or I've done lots of crazy things when you're traveling, right? You don't have all the things you need. So it's nice to have an extra cup, an extra whatever to mix up something or to work with. So don't leave any of that stuff there.
Right. And just like asking at the front desk if you get to your room. I always like drinking my coffee when I'm in the room in a regular mug, not a
Right.
paper cup if possible. And oftentimes, if they're serving breakfast or they're doing the continental thing, they have mugs. They don't always put them in the room. Just ask. Go down to the
Yeah.
front desk and ask, and they're more than willing oftentimes to go, "Oh, here's a mug," and then just use it your entire stay. And then
Right.
they're only having to wash that at the end of your stay.
Yeah. Because you can just keep redoing it. And let's see what else.
We talked
I
about
wanted to
Go
go
ahead.
ahead.
You had stuff to share, but I was also going to say even towels. I know before we
Yes.
went live tonight, we talked about towels, and you'll see the signs in the hotel rooms, but honestly, there's so many states and countries now that are facing severe drought. And if you're taking a shower, I think it's just a mindset. Your body is clean. You're just
Yeah.
using the towel to dry off. So
Right.
hang the towel up, and while you're out during the day, it'll re-dry. It'll get dry enough to use it again the
You
next
don't need a
day.
clean towel
You don't
every
need,
day for
no,
sure.
you really
Um,
don't.
no, and then you can, just be cautious of that. You can even bring your own towel, some of those dry, smaller ones. And I use those. If I don't, I usually bring one of those because not every place has a towel.
Right,
And so I usually have one. And if I'm not going to take a shower, if I'm just going to, I might just use my own towel instead of
right.
dirtying theirs, right? Or making a bigger mess or whatever. So let's see. Let's talk about first talk about these, because we're talking about facial stuff. My mom made me these.
Yeah, those are so great.
They're like little cotton, but these are crocheted. So the disposable ones you buy. So instead of bringing those to take off your makeup or whatever, I bring these, and then I can just wash them out as I go along. They get a little grungy after a few days of taking off mascara, but they're still clean, right? I just give a little soap and water, wash them out, and then I put a little more coconut oil is what I use to remove my makeup. But these work beautifully, and I only need one if it's a small trip, and I need take two if
Right.
I'm on a long time. But I don't need a whole thing, like you said, of makeup removers.
Yeah.
And then I use coconut oil as moisturizer, makeup remover, and sometimes they've even cooked with it because I had it in my bag.
Oh,
So
yeah.
it's a huge multi-purpose item. Um, that's really great. And then I did want to share, and I set up my camera so I could share it,
Yes.
my coffee thing.
Oh, I'm excited.
So this is my coffee cup that I got at Target, and I bought this one because it was light. It's plastic and it's small. And I also wanted to be able to make my oatmeal. As you know, I make oatmeal in the morning for breakfast. So what I do is I pour the hot water in it, and then I close it up and let it seep for a while. And because I use old fashioned oats, I don't use instant oatmeal, but it works really well. It's usually done in a couple of minutes by sitting in here. But if I'm going to do coffee, I recently picked this lovely little thing up,
That's cool.
and it's a pour over. So it just goes here. And then when I bring just a bag of coffee, right? So I only need a
Yeah.
bag of coffee. I put a little scoop, pour it in, and then I have coffee. I'm done. I have nothing that I throw away. I mean, I can reuse this Ziploc bag, and I have coffee for the day.
Right.
And then I'm using that coffee, and sometimes I'll make it a couple of cups, because then I'll fill up my larger
Your thermos. Yeah.
thermos, which is here. And it's funny, this thermos, they have them at IKEA about this size. But this one, my mom picked up for me at a thrift store.
Did you really? Yeah, I know. If you go into the
And
thrift store,
sometimes they're there. And this is probably the third or fourth one we got because I wanted it to be able to keep it hot for several hours, right? So I wanted the coffee to put it hot in there in the morning and then, at 2:00 be able to have a cup of coffee. I'm one of those, right? I drink coffee all day. And so it keeps it hot all day long, like 8 to 10 hours. I tested it, and then it was lovely to be able to, especially in the winter time when I was traveling, I could fill it with coffee, and then I could just stop and take my little cup and pour some coffee in it, sit down, have a little coffee break at a park bench somewhere, and I'm saving money. I'm not buying reusable or disposable cups or anything. So I make a couple cups in here and then I pour it into the thermos. So saving money and the planet all at the same time.
Right, exactly. Oh, and it's so cute too. What a great find. Yeah, but if you do go to the thrift stores, a lot of times you'll see a lot of those containers and you may just have to like investigate them, check them out, but
it wasn't expensive because I think it was like $4 or something like that. And you buy it and then it didn't work. So we tossed that one and, picked a different one up until we got the one that worked. I mean, you do have to try that. You have to experiment. Please experiment at home.
Yeah, try it at home so you don't get frustrated that it doesn't do what you want it to.
The thermos came out of my long trip that I took a few years ago. And I found I was buying a cup of coffee, several times a day. Right.
Right.
And sadly, you can't get a really cheap cup of coffee unless you're at like a convenience store gas station, which I was in the city, so that was harder to find.
Right.
Or, I'm spending $2 to $4 for a cup of coffee 2 or 3 times a day. That's pricey.
Yeah, it is. It adds up. That's now you're like got a sandwich going for the price of your coffee.
Yeah, exactly. And so I could buy a bag of coffee grounds for the price of a couple of cups of coffee. And as long as I have my pour over in my thermos, I'm not, looking for a place to get a cup of coffee while I'm out walking or whatever. Really, I found I was saving, $10 to $40 a week.
Right. Yeah. Oh, easy.
In coffee alone. Right. What else do we have? We have a few other things. I'm looking to see what's on my.
We also talked about like snacks instead of buying the individually wrapped snacks. Buy a larger bag, and even before you go on your trip, you can pack a smaller size for yourself. But it's a lot cheaper to buy the larger bag, as we all know. Or oftentimes just make that your first stop after you've landed. Oftentimes that's what I do. I stop and go to the grocery store, pick up some groceries that'll kind of carry me through the whole week to 2 weeks, however long we're gone, and just, share and split it up that way instead of buying those individual wrapped snacks.
Yeah, honestly, you'd save money by buying a large thing of something and then donating it or giving it to a friend before you leave. And like with the coffee thing, sometimes I just ask. I'll ask if I'm staying with a friend, could I have a half a cup of coffee grounds? Because I don't need a whole bag. They'll just fill it up for me. Sometimes you can say that to even a restaurant or whatever. If you're staying at a hotel, it's just like, do you have a bag of coffee back there? Like they don't care. Sure.
No, yeah, exactly.
And that'll get me through 3 days of coffee because, I'm not making a whole pot. Right. So
right, exactly.
There's a lot of value in that. And let's see, there was some.
Well, we talked about going paperless when you can. And a lot of places now too, when you pay for something with your credit card, they'll give you that option and just have it emailed. It's a lot easier to have that receipt go into your email box than having them spit out another piece of paper that you're going to stuff in your bag and then eventually get rid of anyways.
And for like paperless tickets and those kinds of things, some of us need to practice a little bit with that. I mean, I know some people are much more comfortable if they have a physical copy, but you might need to practice that a little at home, like download the app or do whatever so that you don't need a physical copy. So it took me a while to move from always feeling comfortable that I had my train ticket on, a printed copy or my plane ticket, because now I'm comfortable with it online. And honestly, if your phone doesn't work or you can't figure it out, if you just literally walked up to the desk, you have a ticket, you have an ID, they can find your ticket,
exactly.
Right? Like you're going to be fine. Even when I couldn't find a ticket one time on Amtrak, that's what they did. It was like, oh, let me go look it up. Oh yeah, you do. Like it was it's
Right,
a bit of a
right.
hassle, but it was not the end of the world that I didn't have a printed copy. So lots of ways to go paperless. Um, and let's see. Oh, we talked a little bit about, we were thinking about like not using their takeaway containers. So bring something, think about that, and not eating, watch where you're eating and what they serve it on, right? Because
Right.
some of them are serving it on, plastic and paper plates and so forth, even inside a place.
Yeah, I've noticed
Um,
that recently inside places they are, and I not quite sure what's going on there, but I think a lot has happened in the last couple of years that, this individual use thing, but we're back to now creating all
yeah.
this additional waste. Same with grocery stores, packing your own. I know both of us have those nylon bags that
Yes.
literally squish down into a little ball that you can clip on your bag or,
Yeah.
stuff it in the corner of your backpack and have that use available to use when you do go shopping so you can turn down another bag,
Mhm.
but if you do happen to get a bag, find ways to reuse it. By all
Yes.
means, just
Stick it
keep
in your bag and you can put your dirty shoes in it, your
Yep.
wet bathing suit or towel, or like, you'll find that you can reuse it, right? You can find
Right.
something. But yeah, you taking a shopping bag is really helpful. And it's helpful for when you have multiple things, right? Like if I go someplace and I do a couple things of shopping, they now have given me 7 little tiny bags. I didn't
Yeah.
need that. I could have just kept putting it in one. Now I don't need a bunch of little bags.
Yeah.
And on that note, like, be cautious of taking paper items. People like to give you all of these paper flyers and stuff. Practice taking photos of it. If you see a flyer
Yeah.
that is of interest or a brochure somewhere, just open it up and snap a few photos so that they don't need to print another one. You may or may not use it. What are you going to do with that piece of paper? But if you want the information, snap a photo of it. I've done that for sure, where I've taken the brochure and just sort of laid it on the counter, photoed the front and back, opened it up, photoed
Yeah.
it, and it's like, okay, now I got the information, I can read it, but I don't need to carry, right, the
Right.
paper,
Right.
and I don't need to waste it. So definitely. And then we wanted to talk, I know we wanted to jump into toiletries. So let's talk about that, because we talked about my makeup things, the little makeup remover things. And then shampoo bars, lotion bars, conditioner bars, those are all good. People like those for travel, because they're not a liquid, but they're a huge difference for the environment. I mean, we read that one shampoo bar prevents 3 bottles of shampoo from being
Right.
made, right? So
That's
one
huge.
bar equals 3 bottles. So that's a lot of plastic that you're saving. And you can literally just put them all in a little, container. Shampoo bar takes up so much less space than liquids. You don't need the
I
liquid
know.
bag.
Yeah.
Um, Again, another thing to practice, because it took me several times to find the right one,
Yes.
but definitely practicing that will help.
Yeah, and you're just going to have to experiment and try some of these products. Some of these tips may not work for
Everyone.
everyone, but even doing a few of these items, and it's just putting that in your mindset. It's, practicing it and thinking about it. You'll find you'll start to kind of fall into the benefits. You'll be like, oh yeah, you're right. Look at how much space I saved,
Yes.
or
Yes.
look how much I didn't, I didn't have all this trash at the end of the trip, or that
Mhm.
last night before you're heading back to the airport, you're not uncluttering your bag with a bunch of just literally trash, things you're going to have to leave that you
Right.
could have had reusable things to use. And,
Yeah.
just start practicing, even letting the hotels know. I mean, when you say that you don't need a plastic plate, or, oh, I don't need these extra silverwares or whatever, you're also letting them know that you're being mindful of that. And that might also send a signal to the
Mhm.
larger, corporate, whatever. I know a lot of larger corporate hotels have gone away from even some of the little individual
Yeah.
toiletries to having like a large, you know,
Yes.
thing that you can use from, or only asking at the front desk if you need it.
Right. Yeah, that's really helpful because, I mean, there's all of that stuff, it just gets thrown away, right? There's so much
Right.
just stuff being tossed, and it's back to like, if it's convenient, then it's often, there's a lot of waste to it. So pay attention to what's convenient and think about, what you can do. And also think about like how things used to be.
Yeah, there you go. That's a good way to think of it too.
Because things used to be different. I know when I started, I'm holding my cream deodorant that I use, and it comes in this big jar, but I transfer what I need to travel into this. So this is the size of my deodorant compared to what if you use it on a stick, it's huge. There's a
Oh,
lot of
it's
plastic.
huge.
There's so little. It's just a cream. And I mean, you just put it on like you do lotion. It's super easy. It's like a little
Yeah.
sticky cream. Um, it's so much easier to use. It takes up a lot less space. And actually, that's how deodorant used to be.
Right.
Like arid, extra dry. I think still sometimes you can get it in a little container like this.
Okay.
Because it used to be a cream, which is really weird because we don't think of it that way. Most of us are so used to seeing it in a stick, right?
Right,
Um,
right.
but I've also taken that stick and like just cut it and put some of it in a
Yeah,
little thing because you can use your hand and wipe it and put it on instead of using
I
the
know.
contain. It's a lot of trash, right?
It's a
It's
lot of trash. It's a lot of wasted space now in your
just
bag. Again, just reducing you. Wouldn't you rather have that space for, something that you're really going to use, an extra
right.
shirt to wear or whatever it might be, or.
Yeah. So thinking about what you're using and how much plastic is there and what you can swap out. And some of it's just being creative. Do a little Google search to see how you could change something that's big in your bag to make it something smaller or something that you often use, disposable ofs and how you could have something that's reusable instead. So I think we've gotten to 6:30, but there's so many things to talk
Oh,
about.
yeah, right. There's so many ideas, and this has been
Everything
really
from
good that there's a lot of thought going into people and companies that are trying to help us be more mindful in how they're making things, how
right.
we can save the environment and also
Yeah.
save our space when we travel.
Yeah. And so pause and take a little thought process on what you can take in your bag that's reusable and that'll keep you from using individually wasteful things. So, and we'll be back next week. I think we have another how to on Wednesday next week. And I'm going to
Yep.
look real quick to see, how to travel with your family. So we're going to talk a little bit about family travel. I think we've talked about that a little bit before, but we'll hone in on, what it means to bring family and kids and adults and grandparents and so forth. And we'll talk a little bit about making that trip the best it can be. So
Right.
see you guys
All right.
on Wednesday, right? Next week.
Next Wednesday. Thanks, everyone.